That was Kellen Howell reporting. I want to bring in Brian Vicente, who advises cannabis businesses on how to obtain licenses. He was a member of the transition team for Colorado Governor Jared Polis. Thanks for coming on with us.
My pleasure.
So, Brian, Colorado was the first state to legalize marijuana. I remember covering it when it happened. It was a really big deal. But at that time, there wasn't a lot of support then. Take me through some of the challenges you faced back then.
Sure. So I was one of the main authors of Colorado's legalization measure, and I also co-directed the campaign. So I was very involved for almost a 10-year period trying to pass that law. We've seen over time that, public support has shifted in favor of legalizing marijuana, either for medical purposes or for all adults. And that was, that played out in front of the voters in Colorado, and we're seeing it play out in other states where they're getting to know medical marijuana patients. They're starting to see, medical marijuana stores, and they begin to think, if we can sell this plant to patients and tax it and regulate it, why can't we do that for all adults? It is, at the end of the day, less harmful for adults than alcohol. That's the thought process that's going through a lot of these states, and that's what we kind of had to overcome in Colorado when we won in 2012.
So it's been almost a decade since cannabis was legalized. How has that changed Colorado in general?
There's been a number of important sort of policy shifts. We've had about 50% less arrests for cannabis, and there were a lot of cannabis arrests in Colorado historically. So that's a lot of individuals that are not saddled with that criminal record anymore, can get jobs or apply for school funds and things like that without a criminal conviction. It's been a big economic boon for the state. We have about 40,000 jobs directly in the cannabis industry, certainly tens of thousands more outside that service that industry, and the state has brought in about $1.5 billion in tax revenue, right, from those sales in the last 8 or 10 years. We wrote the law, and I was one of the authors. We stated in the law that, as passed by the voters, that the first $40 million in tax revenue every year will go into school construction projects. So that happens every year. That could be anything from producing new schools to upgrading schools with better technology, things of that nature. The state has actually raised that cap, and now we look at having closer to $60 or $80 million coming into that every year. Rec centers, whether that's getting better police cars. It's sort of there's a general fund that's being, addressed here. And particularly during COVID, Colorado, like many places, it was in a pretty tough economic, arena at that moment. And it's good that we had this designated as an essential business, and these sales went on, and that tax revenue kept coming into the state.
So marijuana is still illegal federally. As you know, a lot of states have some kind of regulation program or law. What's your thoughts on when or if the U.S. will make marijuana legal federally?
We have not seen a ton of guidance from the Biden administration on this. We didn't see a ton of guidance from the Trump administration. They're also not shutting down these state laws, which certainly operate on the other side of the federal law that says it's illegal federally. I do think with the passage of these laws, the public opinion shifting, in the next several years, we will see marijuana laws change at the federal level.
So your work includes helping companies and individuals obtain state and local licenses. What's the standard process for someone to get a license?
Sure. So every state does it a little bit differently. And so it's sort of like alcohol. You have different laws depending on the state you're in. And we have laws where certain states like Florida or New York will say, hey, we're giving away very few licenses, business licenses. We're going to give these out in a sort of elaborate RFP process where people send in proposals. Other states like Oklahoma, Colorado, Oregon just say, hey, if you can find the right zoning and you don't have a criminal history and you can find a building, we'll let you open this cannabis business. Now, that's not to say those businesses aren't tightly regulated once they're open. There's seed-to-sale tracking and cameras everywhere. But it really kind of differs state to state in terms of how people enter this new field. We also have a dawn of a new industry, right? We have this multi-billion-dollar industry that was entirely illegal. Now it's becoming legal. How can we make sure that the people that were affected worse by these laws are able to get these licenses, to your point? And different states are tackling this in different ways. Illinois, for instance, is giving away just a certain number of licenses to individuals that come from these impacted communities. Other states are giving lower fees for individuals that might want to apply for a business in the cannabis space and come from a minority group, ethnic minority group. There's also access to funds. Sometimes you have municipalities in California that are giving low interest loans to communities of color that are applying for these new licenses. So it's a hodgepodge, and I think every state and every community is trying to figure out how to do the right thing around this. But the important thing is folks are trying. They understand that cannabis prohibition was wrong-headed. It really disproportionately impacted younger people, poorer people, and communities of color. And so we're trying to produce laws that will address that.
Okay, Brian, Vicente, thank you so much for your time. A lot of great insight over the years on how it started and where we are. Thanks for coming on The Why.
Thank you.